Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our global, nimble, and extended community. My name is John Ferrara, and this is a unique day for us. I think this is our first time where we've done a live video conversation, and I'm really looking forward to it. And more importantly, I'm looking forward to it because I'm here with my, I'm going to say dear friend, Sabrina Horn. Sabrina, say hello.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you.
So Sabrina and I go way back. Back in the early days of tech, I actually scaled Goldmine by getting other people to tell our story. It's more powerful when other people tell you a story, and also more effective. And we used PR to grow that company more than anything. And we had our own in-house PR until we didn't. And at a critical junction in the company, I needed help. And somehow I found your firm, Sabrina, and your firm guided me through a US and European press tour that was not easy, right? It was not easy setting up those meetings and preparing for each of those people, et cetera. And your team was amazing. And that made me love your team, your company, and now you forever. But your background, yes. You kind of just bootstrapped your company just like we did. On $500, you started a PR agency. And what I love about it is that you started it a short time after really getting in the business. And you grew that company into really one of the leaders globally in tech, PR, and consulting. And then you sold it. And now you got the Horn Group. And you're out there teaching and growing and consulting with companies around the world. And now you have your first book. And that's what we're here to talk about. Fake it, make it, don't fake it. So let's start by, and for those that don't know me, I'll briefly just talk about myself. I've been a people person all my life. I think relationships are critical to your life success. I think we build energy by connecting with others and sharing and sharing anything that we have in common in order to help grow that person. Because I think that's how we grow, is by growing others. And so I build software that helps people to connect with others at scale. And by doing that, they achieve their dreams. So Sabrina, one of the things that I was really most excited about in talking to you is just starting out with, this is your first book. And I think that in today's over-connected, over-communicated world, that you need to stand out in order to build your brand and your network and achieve your life success. And I think you do that best by giving your knowledge away. And I think that most people struggle with creating content. I, for one, do. As a math computer science major, I did not excel in liberal arts. So in order for me to build my brand and network, I curate people that have high reach and relevance with my audience and resonate with me. And that's been successful for me. But, I've had a book in me for some time. And so I want to learn. I'm sure the audience wants to learn, because many of them have a book, or they should be creating a book if they can. Why this book now? And how did you do it? And how can other people learn about extracting that book that's in them?
Okay, well, that's certainly a great place to start. And thanks again, John, for having me. And it's nice to be here with all of you that have signed in. I think maybe I'll take the second part of the question first. The best part of writing the book was seeing it in print. Yeah, there it is, right? And yeah,
with a forward by Geoffrey Moore, no less.
Yes, forward by Geoffrey Moore, and my publisher was Barrett Kohler. And I gotta say, it was a wonderful thing to do during COVID, because there wasn't a whole lot else to do except expand my culinary skills for my kids. So I wrote the book during COVID, but the entire process took 2 years, from an idea, a proposal, finding an agent, and then getting the agent to help me find a publisher, and then actually writing the book and doing the marketing for it and seeing it come out. So if anybody feels like they have a book in them, I highly advise that you just think through your idea and be patient. And patience is a virtue. It's not one of mine. And being in tech, I think we're all kind of impatient people. We want everything to happen quickly. But it was a wonderful thing to do, and I had several moments actually where, when I was writing certain chapters, where it was actually kind of therapeutic to go through some of those tougher moments again and kind of relive them. And I actually learned something about that experience in hindsight, now many, many years later. Now, why the title? Why the book? Why now? I think my career is in public relations in the tech industry. And when I started out, like you said, I had 5 years of job experience. I had no leadership training or management training, really. I knew enough to be dangerous. I had an entrepreneurial spirit in my veins, which I got from my parents. And I thought, I'm just going to try it. And I saw a market opportunity. I thought there was a different way of delivering a great service to clients. And so, I built this business. But along the way, I saw a lot of fakery. And my job was to help our clients basically shoot a straight arrow. And you would think that PR is all about spin, but it's actually not. The best PR is about telling the truth. And if you fast forward to today, like in the last 5 to 10 years, I think too many people have forgotten about the fact that integrity matters. It's not an option in a multiple choice question. And the meme, fake it till you make it, is the worst business advice ever. And it was just an innocent little tongue-in-cheek quip, but it turned a corner and it mutated through social media, and it's basically become this like excuse to lie or shove your problems under the rug or look the other way or take a shortcut in order to succeed. It's like air, and we do it, we don't even think about it. So I wrote this book to help anybody in a position of leadership refocus on leading with integrity and authenticity, and to give them the tools to avoid that temptation to fake it.
There's so many similarities in our journey. I started Goldmine in 1989, and I think I graduated college. I was looking at my degree the other day in 1986. So I was 3 years out of college. Like, what am I starting a software company for? And I think I did it because I didn't want to say shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? I could always go, like, as a guy with a computer science degree and I think 3 or 4 years of experience in tech, I can always go get a job. But you can't always take that step. And so anybody listening today, we don't say shoulda, coulda, woulda. Take that step if you can, when you can. So you have no regrets. And we also share entrepreneurial parents. My dad had the first Subaru dealership in California back in the day, and he was a Lincoln Mercury guy. And I never wanted to be in sales, so I studied tech. Look at me. So Sabrina, in your book, Make It, Don't Fake It, you state that it's not as simple as just being a good person and having morals anymore, that driven to succeed entrepreneurs and executives, almost anyone moving up the ladder, are tempted to exaggerate and minimize the truth. And it sabotages their success and destroys their reputation. I mean, just look at Theranos. I mean, there's a million examples, right? So we asked the question about how many people have come across the imposter syndrome. What is the imposter syndrome? How can people avoid it if possible? And how do you shake it off if you stepped on that pile of doo-doo?
Yeah. So imposter syndrome is a really popular topic these days. And the classic definition of it is this terrible feeling that the success you've achieved is all a fraud, and that you'll be exposed for being a fraud, that maybe your success was just a function of good timing or good luck, or somebody handed it to you. And you feel like at any moment somebody's going to realize that you're a fraud, when actually you achieved that success earnestly and honestly. And it happens to 70% of all overachievers. So pretty much everybody on this webinar. And right, yeah, me too. And it happens more to women and minorities, but you know, men are right there as well. And usually it occurs when you change jobs, you move to a different company, or say you get promoted. And so you're surrounded by new people and there's different expectations than you're accustomed to. And you feel like you need to be somebody else, right? And fake it in order to sort of get a seat at the table or to earn their respect. When in fact, you know, they hired you and they brought you up or they promoted you precisely because of what you already have done. And so it's a terrible feeling. And I will admit it happened to me when I sold my company. I ran my own business for 24 years. And on Friday, I was the CEO of Horn Group. And Monday, I was a managing partner of this global tech practice for a $100 million company. And, you know, it was literally like, Sabrina's going to walk in and the show's going to start. and I thought like, no, that's not me. I can't do that. And it was paralyzing. So the danger with it is that, you know, you can start to fake it, right? You start to feel like you can't be the person who you really are. And the way to shake it is to do a few things. You have to sit down with yourself and go away and take a walk in nature or take a weekend and really write down, or better yet, actually record and play back your achievements to yourself, not in competition with anyone else, but just what you did. The second thing is that I highly recommend everybody on this webinar should have a set of mentors, a safety net, people who can give it to you straight, who will give you the shot in the arm when you need it, and who will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear as well. I also recommend doing something that I call watching myself in my own movie. And this is when, you know, I have this anxiety, right, about what these people think of me in this meeting. And so I pretend I'm the director of my own movie and I'm playing the leading role. And I'm thinking like, how do I want to come across? What am I wearing? What am I saying? Who am I sitting with? What questions am I asking? And so that by thinking that through, I sort of pre-imagine the situation in my head before it actually occurs. And it just really takes the anxiety out of it. And it's also a good way of prepping for that conversation. And the last tip I would offer is, you know, you don't have to have all the answers. You can ask questions. You can say, you know, oh, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that. You know, make sure you know what the agenda is. Make sure you know what is expected of you. And these are all it's not rocket science, but we forget. And they're little things that can help you shake the green man.
Yeah. You know, that resonates with me so much. I achieved almost unlimited success with Goldmine and great success with Nimble. And I often, you know, have questioned like, why me, right? How did I do it? Did I even do it, right? And then when you're there and the success that it brings, it's like, this isn't really mine. I'm going to wake up and somebody's going to take all this away from me. I remember when I bought my first house where I could even just afford it in the early days of Goldmine. And it was this tiny little place out in Thousand Oaks, which is a long ways from Los Angeles. But I had to live there because that's all I could afford. And then when I actually bought a house in Los Angeles, it was so strange. Like just to it was strange to like, this isn't really my house. And so I think many people who achieve success go through that exact feeling. Mm-hmm. So this other part was really, I think we all talk about authenticity, and I think that it's a overused, misused word But when I think about authenticity, I think that in today's transparent world of social media, it's more important than ever to be real, because people can sense, feel, and see fakery, whether it's as a persona or a company or a product, whatever. And when I think about authenticity, I think of Satya Nadella. And I've had a lot of experience working with Microsoft of late, and also in the early days, back in the Ballmer days. And I think that Ballmer and Gates were important for Microsoft in those days. And and that leadership was great in that time. But these times are different. And I think in those times that Microsoft made some missteps, right? They ate their children, right? Like Borland, Lotus, WordPerfect. I mean, I could just go on. Novell, they ate them all, right? And I think that if you eat all your children, then you don't have a family anymore. And it's hard to grow, right? And so I think Microsoft went through this, I'm walking through the desert period where like they lost relevance, right? When the world was moving to the cloud and away from Windows into Mac and all kinds of things. And I mean, look at it today. Microsoft is back bigger than ever, and they've changed. If you work with Microsoft today, they've absolutely transformed themselves, and they're transforming their customers. And I think they did it with Satya's lead from the heart, transparent, empathetic persona, and it's transforming the company and therefore their customers. So what are some of the keys for entrepreneurs? How do they become authentic leaders? And also, how do you become and stay an authentic brand? Because I think the two are really related, right? If there was an authentic leader, you become an authentic brand because you permeate that in the organization.
Yes. I mean, look, I think it's like that bond between a leader and his or her company. And what that bond is based on is a set of core values. And it may sound silly, but to create an authentic brand, you have to first have that another sit down conversation with yourself. And, you know, I would challenge every entrepreneur to put a set of core values in their business plan, because that set of core values represents who you are, what you stand for, what you want your customers to understand about you. And it is the foundation for your culture. Like, if you leave the coffee cup in the kitchen sink or put it in the dishwasher, says something about you, you know? And so if you don't want people to leave their cups in the sink, then you can't do that either. You have to put them in the dishwasher. So, I mean, it's just a small example, but your core values manifest themselves in every aspect of your culture, how you people treat each other, the things you celebrate, the things you tolerate, and the things that you don't. And then it manifests itself in every business process. So think about, you know, the value of excellence in service or creativity. How does that value manifest itself in customer satisfaction, in how you train your people, in the language you use to respond to your customers, how quickly you respond to your customers, the joy that you have in dealing with your customers, and treating complaints as gifts, something I wrote about, right? Not as like, oh God, you know, another one of those, right? And all of that in this big ball is your brand. And it's reflected out in this halo effect. And the way that you keep an authentic brand is by preserving the heritage of those core values, and by keeping a consistent customer experience. But the thing you have to also do is realize that times change, like Microsoft adapted, right? Every company has to adapt. So you have to have that lens of listening to your customers and what they need and the competition and the market while you're still being true to yourself, right? And that's where, you know, the gears start to mesh. But I think that set of core values, they may move up and down over time. They may take on new meaning, but they are everything.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of companies out there where leadership talks bad about the customers or the partners, right? They badmouth them, and then when the customer-facing team members are engaging with them, it reflects on the way they treat them, the tone they use, etc. And we've all been in businesses where you just feel great about doing business with them. Nordstrom's, as an example, right? Like that experience is just wonderful. And on the contrast to that, Macy's, or one of those other stores where it's just completely different. There's nobody there. and clothes are just sort of just everywhere.
Yeah.
They don't care. Dealing with the harsh truths of a crisis. All businesses face crises. Look what happened at Peloton recently with their tread exercise platform. My neighbor is one of the founders of Peloton. I'm an early customer of Peloton. I had a tread. I have one of the new bikes with the swivel screens, and I do my HIIT classes. I love it. I do it with my wife. But when the tread thing first happened and there was a death of the child, God forbid, I just hate thinking about that. They didn't deal with it really well. They kind of shrugged it off. They didn't really deal with it head on. Afterwards, they dealt with it by accepting responsibility and offering anybody with a tread to send it back to them. But it took time for them to get to that point. Why do people continue avoiding dealing with harsh truths? Why is it important to deal with the harsh truths of crises? And how can companies, more importantly, prepare to avoid this problem?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great example. And unfortunately, there's so many others, many of which we don't hear about. The reason why it's so hard.
I'm sorry, Sabrina. I keep needing to say this.
But
audience, ask questions, please. The question box down below. We learn from questions. Type them in. We're going to have some Q&A at the end. Sorry, Sabrina. I just kept forgetting. And every time you start talking, I don't want to interrupt you. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. You guys have to ask questions. That's what this is all about. The reason why dealing with a crisis is so hard is because it's hard to face reality. It's hard to face the harsh truth that you made a mistake, that your product has to be recalled, or that the vaccine doesn't work, or that the airplane had a problem, as we saw with the Boeing Max aircraft. Total lack of transparency there. It's hard to face the truth and admit a mistake, but that, for the privilege of being a leader, that is what you have to do. It is part of your job description. And the way to prepare for that is to come up with crisis plans. I mean, it was what we did as a PR firm, but we do it every day in our personal lives as well. If I don't make it to the doctor on time, then I'm not going to get my kid the medicine he needs, and then he's going to be sick and I have nobody at home. And so you think about it. It's the same thing. If this horrible crisis happens, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? Imagine that. And then come up with a couple different scenarios to deal with it. There are plenty of templates out there. You can hire a PR firm to do it for you, but honestly, you can just do it yourself and think about what the vulnerability assessment is, come up with the contingency plans, the things that you need to do in order to navigate that crisis. And I'll tell you what, it's much better to be honest and admit a mistake than it is to be caught for pulling a fast one, because your reputation and your credibility will suffer for years. Uber will still be that company that you're not really quite sure. Peloton has a great cloud over it now, and because that stuff lives on in the internet forever.
Yes.
So,
And I agree that trust is everything. It takes a long time to earn it, and it takes such a short amount of time to lose it. And I think that a lot of people lose trust by making false promises they can't keep. And I think that permeates sales, right? It's just like, oh yeah, I'll do that, And I think that saying what you're going to do and doing what you say is so critical to your integrity and your brand. And so making false promises is an age-old problem. Why do people keep doing it? how and why should they avoid doing it?
Yeah. I mean, so I want to say one thing first before I forget. Being honest and honesty is a really good marketing strategy right now because because it's really refreshing and people are just dying to trust in the brands that they love, in their relationships. You know, you can't build a relationship or a business without honesty as a foundation, as a foundational value. And communicating with honesty, and and admitting that mistake, or like saying, like, you know what, with COVID, our supply chain decimated. Your couch is, this happened to me, is coming in 6 months. So we can give you a discount. We can give you a different couch. You may not like it, but we can give you a different couch, or you can just wait, or you can, go somewhere else. But that's the truth. And it is so, like, it's like, oh, great. Thank you for just telling me, like, what the lay of the land is, So, and then I think in terms of your other part of your question, when you're an entrepreneur or a salesperson and, like, you're driven to succeed, you're under pressure, you got to make your number, you got to get the VCs money, your competitors you're hearing voices and whispers. And so in order to accelerate the process or get the sale, you exaggerate the truth about what your product can do from a technology standpoint, or, so what happens? The investor is going to do his due diligence and find out that you lie. You lose your credibility, or worse, he's never going to talk to you again. And it's such a small circle, he's going to tell other people. Or you overpromise to a customer. Guess what? The customer, she's going to try that product. She's going to say, it doesn't do what you said. And you're either going to have to spend a whole lot of time and money and resources to try and fix her problem if it's a big enterprise sale, right? Or she's going to post about it on the internet, and all of your prospects are going to see that. So just don't do it. Just within the confines of what is the truth, right? And you have to have, like, what I call a 60 minutes episode with yourself. Like, what can my product really do, right? And when it doesn't work in these situations, what happens? And when does it fall apart? And you have to have an answer for those uncomfortable questions that is the truth. And within the confines of the truth, find what is most compelling. It's just like when you're interviewing for a job and you think you have to tell some lie or a story, or, that you went to Harvard when actually maybe you never graduated from high school. And the employer is going to check your references, and you know what? You're not going to get that job. So just don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't fake it.
Okay. It's easy to get cloudy and confused under pressure of entrepreneurship. We've all been there. And getting the confidence and clarity to make sound business decisions is a skill that all entrepreneurs need. And we've all seen companies make horrible decisions under pressure. And I think we sort of covered a little bit of this, what Peloton recently did, or Theranos continued to do. I don't know if they ever have the truth. What makes people make bad decisions, and how can they avoid doing it? And how do you get the confidence and clarity to make sound decisions?
Yeah. Well, I mean, how much time do you have? I mean, that was like a piece of a chapter in my book, and it was certainly something that I had to deal with because I was a young 29-year-old woman, suddenly the CEO of a business that was taking off, and I was faced with decisions that I had never had to make before, and I was completely overwhelmed, and so what did I do? And this is what I wrote about surround yourself, build a leadership team of people who complement your weaknesses, and you can't hire people who are just like you, because because then you're not going to get any fresh ideas from them. And that can be hard because you may not be familiar with the skill set they bring, or you may have an ego problem with that, but you've got to do it. Next, I always like to look for what's missing. Like, okay, I did my research, I talked to everybody, I socialized the idea, but what's missing? What's the one thing that if I turned over this one more rock could give me one more piece of information that would make me change my mind or wait till tomorrow, or make what I'm going to do better? The next thing I would suggest is to ask yourself, in every one of those situations where you have to make a tough call, what does success look like? Like, where do you want to be at the other side of this? And then work your way back to, like, okay, so there's a sequence here of steps I need to take. And it's important to know that you don't have to have all the answers to get to the other side. Sometimes it's okay to make a decision that unfolds over time, and then you make new decisions because your reality is changing every day. And so success can just be like getting to tomorrow, you know, and that's okay, because tomorrow will be different, and then you'll make a different decision, right? But so it's what I call the hocus pocus of focus. Like, you want to focus on what you got to do, but you have to have an eye toward like what's coming down the road and what success looks like, right? But just know, like, it's like you're hopping stones, and you don't have to know what every stone looks like, but you have to know, like, what's my next move, and anticipation of the one after that. So there's more in the book about how to navigate that, but those are some ideas.
Sabrina, I now know why I loved working with your team, because they were a reflection of you. I love the way that you explain things, that you think about things. I'm really taking this.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you talk about loneliness in your book, and that really resonated with me as an entrepreneur. I have to tell you, I can't tell you, you know, they say it's lonely at the top, but it's also lonely on the way to the top, you know? And I can't tell you how many times I drove home crying, or didn't want to go back to the office because it was just too much for me. And, you know, as the leader, it's not a choice, you know, and you're really working for your team in many respects. And they don't always get that. And I think that in order to be successful, you really have to put everything into it, and at the sacrifice of almost everything. And so that sacrificed, I sacrificed my family, my friends, my health, just to push that thing to the top. So tell me why you wrote about loneliness, and how can people either avoid it or fix it if they get there?
Yeah, I wrote about loneliness because nobody else has.
Yeah.
And I get asked about it a lot because it was a surprise, I think, a surprise chapter in the book. It's not only lonely at the top, but it is only getting there, because people want to rain on your parade. Maybe your family doesn't love the fact that you're, you know, obsessed with whatever it is you're doing. And when you're at the top, you do have to make those sacrifices in order to get to tomorrow, you know. And it's lonely because there's nobody else to talk to. I mean, by definition, if you're the CEO, there's not another CEO down the hall for you to talk to. And people do expect you, they may not, you know, you may not have all the answers, but they do expect you to show strength and resilience, and, you know, we're going to do it, and that you have to provide a path forward. And, you know, even when you feel like, oh my God, the shit is flying from the sky and I don't know what to do. And that can be a really lonely feeling, not to mention putting out fires all the time and dealing with clients or customers who may not be happy, and then an employee wants to leave and they want to raise, and of course it's all happening at the same time, you know. Meanwhile, in your personal life, your kid's sick or, you know, whatnot. And so how do you deal with that? acquiring it can paralyze you. So you have to acquire a bias for seeking information. You have to make human contact and find a peer group with a third-party organization. I was a part of it wasn't in the tech industry, it was a group of CEOs. One was a head of a furniture company, one was a toy manufacturer, one was with an oil company, many companies much larger than mine. But at some level, we all had to deal with the same kind of problems. And it made me feel like I literally wasn't alone. Like, oh my God, somebody else is dealing with the same crap. And I actually also got like an idea or two out of them, you know? So I really encourage that. I also encourage acts of gratitude, to express thanks and gratitude for a customer's business, even when they're not happy with you, or to just say, you know what, I'm so sorry that happened. How can I make that better for you? It gives you something rather than bottling it up and like saying like, okay, you guys go deal with it. Saying thanks to your employees and celebrating their anniversaries. And then lastly, I think having that safety net of, you know, that handful of people you can talk to. Those mentors are the ones who can say like, look, this is normal. Here's what you got to do. You just get to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe that'll be the title of my next book. Just get to tomorrow.
Tomorrow's a new day. I 100% agree that just sometimes getting through the day is such great success, and even the night. The mentor group is so critically important there. And I might also add a counselor, right? Like if you could find a spiritual advisor of some type who can just listen to you in safety, you know? I did that after I sold Goldmine. I did some spiritual work, and it was really incredible for me. So I actually 100% advise that. And if anybody ever wants a recommendation of a counselor, I've got a really good one if you live in LA. So I read the foreword of your book delightfully, Geoffrey Moore. Gosh, what a great guy to write a foreword. And I was really surprised at the commonalities of entrepreneurial journeys that you shared, right? I didn't know that Geoffrey Moore was a PR agency before he was a consulting company, but now I do. And that some could say that you were competitors, both in the agency days and maybe today in the consulting days. But in fact, you're dear friends. And it just made me think about the importance of building relationships in your industry with others who some might see as your competitors. Tell us about that relationship and why if you think it's important to build relationships with others in your industry, how do you sort of avoid the fear of competition?
Yeah, well, I think it's vital, and it was always an arrow in my quiver. Like the more information I know about what somebody who might be a competitor of mine is doing, the better off I'll be. And you have to go into it knowing what you're doing, and you know you're not going to tell them about your patent or spilling your trade secrets. But you see, the thing is, you're building a network, and those people that you meet, they're not going to be a quasi competitor forever. They're going to go on, and maybe someday you can help them or they can help you. It costs you nothing. And I mean, I made it a habit to get to know my competitors and to get to know my clients' competitors, not to spill out, secret information, but just to get a sense of who these people were and what their vibe is and how they lead and who they talk to, for information gathering. And
Yeah.
I think it was a feather in my cap.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to build Goldmine without knowing my competitors. I wouldn't say I went through the trash, but so know thy enemy, right? And some of my dear friends are the old ACT guys or the Telemagic guys, or even today we're very close to the Dynamics team or even Salesforce. I can't tell you how many meetings I've had at Salesforce. In fact, they were potentially one of our early investors, because it's not really, the space is so big, they're not really competitors. So I've always said that it's more powerful when other people talk about you than when you talk about you. And we use PR to scale Goldmine and Nimble. I'm not sure if people know that we scaled Goldmine with no investors and no bank loans on $5,000 to over $100 million in revenue. But we did that through PR. So I didn't know how to advertise, and I just got really good at telling stories and getting other people to tell those stories. And in fact, John Tashik, the head of strategy at Salesforce, was the editor of PC Computing back in the day when I was teaching him about CRM. Now he's teaching the world about CRM. But PR's changed. Some say it's dead, right? I disagree. I think the channels have changed, but in very much the way we practiced it back in the day when I was a client of yours, a lot of those rules still apply. Sabrina, how has PR changed since you started? What are some of the key PR strategies, tips, or resources that entrepreneurs can learn today to grow their business? Because I really believe that nobody wants to hear you talking about yourself or your products, and it's more powerful when other people talk about it. And how can entrepreneurs do that today?
Okay, so again, I would say, like, how much time do you have? And we, you know, like, if anybody has a question, they should type it in the chat. So PR is not dead. It never will be. It changes in the nature of how it's done. And of course, the internet made that happen with social media. And for every publication that is no longer in print, there's probably half a dozen new online channels to replace them. And it is a much more high risk, high reward environment, because there's even less control today of a message, because it can change in an instant with a post on social media. And so the risk of exposure is much greater. You know, nobody cares about the quote and the boilerplate in the press release anymore. It's all about the tweet, which lasts, you know, what, 10 seconds before somebody likes it or reshares it. So it's much faster, it's much higher risk, higher reward. And I guess the guidance I would offer is this. You always have to ask yourself, what do you want out of it? I mean, I still get calls from people like, well, you know, we need a PR firm and we need some strategy and we'd like to get in the Wall Street Journal. Like, oh my God, like, if I had a nickel for every time a client said that. And my response is, why? Like, meanwhile, I'm thinking it's just for the person's ego, but why do you want PR? What do you want to get out of it? And if you have that business level conversation first, then you may decide actually you don't need PR. Maybe you just need a really good social media program or a webinar series. You know, PR is very distinct in its discipline from advertising, for example. So you have to ask yourself, what do you want out of it? A year from now, you're looking back, what have you accomplished? You want more sales leads? Do you want to close those leads? Do you want to go into a new market? Like those are the questions you should ask yourself, and then work your way back. And then the second piece of advice, I plead with everybody. Every company I still talk to, they lead with this. We are the leading provider of X. And you know what? You're not. Unless you're a Fortune 50 company, you're not. And you just discredit yourself by leading with that phrase, A, and B, by talking about yourself first. Nobody cares. What you have to do instead is frame the problem that you're solving. What is the pain out there that this market that you want to sell into is dealing with? And use the empathy is a big word right now, but you know, use emotional words, like, and be more informal in how you communicate that problem, like in everyday language. No more multisyllabic words and acronyms. and really frame that problem and describe it so that somebody can just really be like, wow, like I've got that too. And then, okay, so here's a way, you know, that we can make that pain go away with this. And that is just absolutely essential to any communications plan, because that's how you engage with people.
Yeah, I think this section is so important. I think that people don't buy great products, they buy better versions of themselves. So instead of talking about how great you are, you should talk about how great you can make other people. And so that, I think, was our secret at Goldmine, is we went to one dark place. I don't know if you know where that is. I'm kidding. One Park Plaza. And we asked the editors at Ziff, you know, how can we help you write more stories? And they said, tell us about how people are using technology to grow. So we started talking about how people are using technology to contact management and CRM to grow their business. And that's what people want to hear about, not how fast or how many records the thing can hold or how good it is. It's about how great the customers are making themselves.
Yeah.
And so we are 7 minutes from the top of the hour, and I'd love to cover some questions.
Yeah.
I've got a question from Barry Fran, and he's asking, when discussing crisis, are some of the issues related to different risk migration approaches, liability and investors, owners, ROI expectations? I'm not sure what he's asking there. Can you see the question in the question box?
Yeah, when discussing crisis, are some of the issues related to different
risk migration approaches?
Yeah.
So you're trying to mitigate risks in liability and investors, ROI expectations. So I guess you're trying to mitigate expectations.
I mean, when discussing crisis, are some of the issues related to different risk? I mean, like, yes, it is all about risk mitigation by preparing for it. And when you are preparing for what might happen, you're looking at that potential liability in the face. And so in the process of preparing for a crisis, you may actually learn certain things that make you like develop a new plan or a new strategy that can help you avoid the potential of that crisis from even happening, you know? So crisis planning should absolutely cover that, think about that. I mean, that's what communication really is all about. And PR is constantly assessing what the risks are out there and coming up with a plan to mitigate them and avoid them while still being true.
Do you have links on your websites for some of these key things like crisis planning, or know of resources that we might share in the email when we follow up with the video of the webinar? Because I think that we covered a lot of sort of key things, but crisis planning was one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you can go buy the book because it's in there.
In there? Perfect. Which is a great lead to before I want to do a couple more questions, but ask you about next steps. So Peter G, Peter Garral asks, I believe that peer pressure creates the falsehoods in individuals. They merely want to fit in. What are your thoughts, Sabrina?
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely true. And I see that in my own daughters who are 20 and 23 years old. This whole notion of influencers, I mean, you know, it's the same thing. They want to fit in, they want to do what their peers are doing. And, you know, that's really a struggle, especially for young people. Like, staying true to yourself and listening to what your mom says is not fashionable, you know, because it's hard to not be part of the group and not be part of the team. But leadership is all about respecting that and letting people, you know, have those opinions. And then you don't have to be one of them, or you can certainly like think that that's cool or that's interesting. but you're still a person. I always say, like, you have one life to live, so make it a good one. Like,
Amen.
and make your own decisions for yourself. Much easier said than done. But that's all about, again, about being authentic and kind of putting a pin in stopping all this fake it till you make it stuff.
So one of our team members, Vivian, asks, as a younger professional, I'd like to know if imposter syndrome evolves, changes as you progress in your career. If so, how does dealing with imposter syndrome change as you grow?
Well, I mean, I dealt with that. Like, so I have a little story to share. In my first job after grad school, I lied on my resume and said that I was a great writer. And because I had written my master's thesis on high tech PR and that, I love tech. And so in my first job, I got this great job and I couldn't write, I couldn't complete an English sentence. And I didn't actually like technology that much. I thought it was very complex and I confused consumer tech with high tech and I actually was put on probation. And I was, and I had to kind of earn my way back. And it was at the beginning of my career, right? And I had sort of set myself up to fail in essence and sabotage my potential success. And then I had to kind of deal with that. As you get older and you move up through your career, the stakes are higher. I mean, you interview for a VP or a senior vice president position or for a CEO position. And being honest is important for everyone, but when you're at the top, the spotlight's on you. And if you are the one who is faking it, it reflects on your team, it reflects on your company, and whether is faking it when you have imposter syndrome or faking it so much that you actually are an imposter, like the stakes just become higher and the ripple effect can affect an entire company or even an industry.
Ergo Theranos. Last question from Jennifer. Can you elaborate on how to find mentors?
Oh, yes. Oh, that's a great question. And your mentors change over the course of your career as well, because you need advice on, you're going to get different advice from different people when you're starting out than when you're running a big company, right? I like to say that I would go after people who can help you with different aspects of your career and your personal life. No one person can help you with everything. So I had a mentor for financial and operational issues. I had a mentor at one point for functional, like customer service and client service and sales strategy issues. And as the company grew and the markets changed, those people, they're still there, but they go up and down based on sort of how you need them and what you need them for. I found them either because they were former clients, my former boss, a retired company executive. You know what? One time my receptionist was my mentor because she could give it to me straight and it was no bullshit. And so it doesn't have to be, some big hairy executive. It can be, what? At one point, my kids were my mentors because they always give it to you straight too. And like, Mom, you're so worried about this stuff, So.
Sabrina, that's so true. As a father of 3 kids, I think that we're on this planet to grow our soul in the brief period of time that we're here. And the best way to grow your soul is being present with people who love you, like your kids and your significant other, because your kids will reflect your shit back at you. And if you're present enough to see that and to work on that, that's how you grow your soul. So what's the first step anyone can take to start applying your advice tomorrow?
Well, aside from buying the book,
Where can they buy the book? I guess you just Google it. It's everywhere. It's on Amazon.
you can get it on Amazon, or you can go to the book page on my website, which is sabrinahorn.com/book. And every retailer, there's a link to any retailer there that you like, if you don't like Amazon. I would say the following: think about the last time you faked it, and then ask yourself, why? Why were you afraid? Were you under pressure? Were you insecure? What caused you to not be completely truthful, or stretch the truth, or minimize it, or leave out certain facts, whatever it is, right? And then ask yourself, if you had a chance for a do-over, what would you do differently? Dial into the feeling that made you fake it, and ask yourself, like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? If the truth is really ABC, then, like, what would happen if I just said that? And then start to practice that, because, like I said in the beginning, we fake it so much it's like air. We don't even think about it. And make a commitment when you put your head down on the pillow at night that you did right by everybody and by yourself and your kids. And you had to have some hard conversations, but you told the truth. And it's an interesting experiment. And I think it's absolutely the ticket to successful leadership and to the longevity of any company and relationship.
So much of your book is applicable to your personal life. Anybody listening to this, especially young people as they're growing, because that's the best time to start these practices. And there are lessons that are hard learned along the road. And Sabrina, I just want to thank you for joining me for this today. It's been a long time since we started this conversation to do this. We got a little hiccup in between, but thank you for having such an impactful, significant impact on my life. And now I know why. I've dug getting to know you better over this past hour. I see why you've had such great success. You're welcome. And thank you to Michaela and to the audience for coming and joining us. I encourage you to reach out to Sabrina, not just buy her book, but connect with her, ask her questions, seek her out, because she is a source of truth and knowledge and dare I say love. Because I see that in your life, the way that you interact with your family. Any final parting words you'd like to share with the audience?
I just two things. If you guys can email me if you want to stay connected, it's Sabrina@sabrinahorn.com. Very easy. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and then we can follow up from there. And I guess I would close with this: like, we've seen in the last year and a half that life can be pretty short, and like it's just not worth it to do anything other than lead with integrity and to be authentic. And like I said, if the journey is supposed to be the reward, then make it a good one.
Amen. And with that, I'm going to leave one final feedback. Sabrina, I love how you lean in. I love how you lean in, because you make it personal. You let us see you, all of you, and you're leaning into us. And I love that.
Well, you gotta, we're here in this virtual world, but it's how I feel, man.
Yeah. Power to you. Okay. And thank you, everyone. Make it an amazing day. Is it already Friday?
No, it's Thursday.
My phone, you know what? I was looking at the thing on my watch, and it was showing a game. I'm a Dodger fan, so it was showing some sort of upcoming game. So it's Throwback Thursday. Do a little bit of throwback today. I might post a little fun picture back in the day when Sabrina was helping me build Goldmine. Sabrina, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Please reach out to us and let us know how we can continue to blow wind in your sails. My connection info, easily, just Google me, John Ferrara. You'll find me, connect with me, whatever channel you want. I encourage you to Google yourself, because that's how people are going to check you out before they get to know you. And if you don't show up on the first page in a way you'd like, build a Wikipedia page for yourself. It's easy and it's free, and it's a good way to add to the narrative of who you are. And if you want, email me, john@nimble.com. Let me know how we can continue to improve what we do here at Nimble and the inspiration education that we try to deliver with these webinars. And Sabrina, thank you for making my first live interview so fun.
Cool.
So I'm going to do more of these.
It was awesome. Thank you. And thanks everybody who came, and Michaela for all your help. And it just was so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.